This week's Crunchwrap has us going to the Caribbean. Bringing some very unique flavors. Some heat, some tropical sweet, and of course, allspice. I always jump at the chance to use a little bit of allspice in my recipes. Such a unique flavor. Going to be making the standard large size Crunchwrap, but with a new brand of tortillas. First up for the filling, we're starting with some jerk chicken thighs. But even before that, we gotta check out some spice blends. The big three we'll be creating this week is a Sazon, an adobo, and of course the jerk chicken spice blend itself. Specific spice blends down below if you want to check those out. Oftentimes a spice blend won't contain any salt, but adobo and Sazon are both salted blends. Now for common blends like these, common in the fact you can go to the store and you can find these blends pre-made for you. So you might be asking, why would I bother putting this together? During this particular Crunchwrap journey, I came up with a great reason why you might do it yourself. I wanted to test the blends that I found online and made myself against a couple of the pre-made blends that you can find at any grocery store. First one, the Sazon made by Badia. This is a pretty good blend and I was very happy with this. However, this Goya adobo sent me down a rabbit hole. I gave it a quick taste and it was incredibly salty. So I checked the nutrition facts. 520 milligrams of salt. Compare that to this blend, same serving size, 90 milligrams of salt. How much spice blend are you actually getting? So I weighed it out. A quarter teaspoon is just a little over a gram. So this Goya spice blend is 45% salt. Salt intake can be an issue for many people, but more than that, it just makes me feel taken by the Goya brand. So for me, that's gonna be a big thumbs down for Goya on this adobo spice blend. More testing on this later. Now, I needed to make my jerk chicken thighs, so I swung by the jerk store.
I'm going with jerk store! Jerk store!
After giving them a nice rub down, I let them marinate overnight. And I tested 2 cooking methods, just for fun. Desert Crunchwrap is all about exploration. The first one was 350 convection for 30 minutes. Pulled the chicken at 160.
Oh, god damn.
The second was 400 degrees using my roast function. Began temping that at about 20 minutes. Pulled it at 25 minutes, also around 160 degrees. The higher heat did add a few more darkened edges. The skin was slightly crispier, but other than that, I couldn't really tell a difference. After enjoying one thigh from each cooking method, it was time to really kick up the flavor. You can't just toss a whole chicken thigh into a Crunchwrap, so we were gonna have to break it down further. We were gonna strip these beauties down and let them simmer in their own juices for an hour or two. And this thigh meat, after being simmered, became an absolute flavor bomb. It offered the intensity of flavor that I so desperately craved from the jerk seasoning. Next up, we were gonna use some plantains. You want them to be as unripe as possible in order to give you that very starchy, almost potato-like texture. But because they aren't ripe, they require a little extra work when you're peeling them. I like to score the peel in 4 areas and then peel it a quarter at a time. I tried the plantains a couple of ways. Often I like to cut them into little discs and fry them that way, but I think for the Crunchwrap it was actually better to do slices. 2 slices per Crunchwrap worked great. Next comes a lime slaw with something I'd never eaten before, the Chayote Squash. It has a skin, so I figured I'd have to peel it. It's called a squash, so I figured there would be a core I'd need to remove or some seeds, but no. It turns out you can just eat this thing like an apple. And it's honestly pretty good. I didn't peel it, I didn't core it, I just did a kind of a julienne and threw it in with the rest of the stuff, and it was fantastic. It has a crunch and a delicious texture. It also has kind of a fun little Muppet mouth. Along with the chayote, just some cabbage, some julienne jalapenos, some cilantro and lime, and we were ready to roll. So we've got some heat. Now we need some sweet. For a little tropical flair, I went with a mango cream. Sauteed the mango to bring out a little bit of the sweetness, blended it up in my blender with some lime and some salt, and then after blending, hand mixed in some yogurt, so I was sure not to break the yogurt, which isn't guaranteed, but can happen if you blend something like yogurt. And for the bean insulator, I want to revisit this homemade spice blend versus store-bought conundrum. I prepared identical versions of some Dominican beans using pinto beans, except in one I used my personal blends of the Sazon and the Adobo, and the other I used the Goya and Badia brands of those spice blends. There was a pretty clear difference between the homemade spice blends and the store-bought, at least coming from these cheaper brands. In the homemade spice blend, you get a lot of flavors, depth, delicious layers. But with the store-bought blends, especially the Goya, I'm calling Goya the big culprit here, all you get is a lot of salt. Pretty flat, just tons of salt. This is wildly salty. Jesus Christ. It's not inedible, but it's on the verge of inedible. I'm definitely gonna have to put acid in this one just to tone that down, way down. Holy shit. All right, back to this bad boy. And this, you would think this one would be saltier because it's cooked down more, but because we had the good homemade mixture, it's not salty to the max. Goya. And finally, for the sealant, I used queso fresco, a salty, crumbling cheese. And as far as being a sealant, it landed somewhere in between the standard great melting cheeses and paneer. I didn't have to pre-fry it, but it didn't seal quite as tightly as something like cheddar. All right, let's break it down. This Crunchwrap is a drippy one, but it is absolutely jam-packed full of flavor. Simmering the thigh meat in the juices, in the jerk seasoned juices, really took things to the next level. The plantains add that starchy, satisfying texture that is there to soak up some of those juices while it's reheating. The chayote holds its texture super well, adds a very satisfying fresh crunch in the slaw, and the mango lended some sweetness and that satisfying creaminess. The bean insulator was delicious in its own right, and the queso fresco just tops everything off so nicely. I'm super excited for this. I've been eating these all week and loving it. Heat, sweet, crunch, all of it wrapped into this thing. Caribbean flavors are nailing it. Couple more things, starting with the tortilla. The Guerrero tortilla, I think cold, the Guerrero folds just as nicely, is just as malleable as the Mission, which I think is great. I'm not always gonna wanna throw it in the microwave. Sometimes I just wanna pull it and start wrapping. And I think it actually browns as well as the Banderita brand. So Guerrero might be the best of both worlds, having the great browning effect and being extremely malleable in all situations. Now, check it. The queso fresco, pretty fun. You don't have to pre-fry it, doesn't seal as tightly, but it looks pretty dope. And it tastes delicious. Look at all those little fun little air pockets as it was cooking up there. Let's get to that first crunch in this guy. Absolutely fantastic. And on the side, some of the leftover plantain ends that I fried. I did fry the plantains to order. Basically, every time I was gonna do a Crunchwrap, I'd cut up a plantain, fry those. I cannot sing the praises of this enough. But the mango cream, and I think it adds just an absolutely wild dimension to this Crunchwrap. You get that bite where you hit it And you get that sweetness right off the bat. The sweetness nails your tongue. And then it blends into that jerk seasoning heat as it kind of sits in your mouth for a little while. God damn. I went through a lot of recipes and did a lot of research on different foods and things in the Caribbean. And I could not be more blown away by a lot of these flavors. I'm super happy I did this. I think I learned a ton about this particular flavor profile, and I'm definitely gonna be doing something like this again. So, do a Crunchwrap? Yeah, it definitely do.